Hi everybody, this is Jim, and today is July 11th, 2019. It's World Benzodiazepine Awareness Day. And today I'm stepping out of my comfort zone and doing something that I normally don't do. I'm making a video. If you know me well, you know I'm kind of weird about being in videos and photos. I'm not hiding from the police anymore, but it's just something I don't like to do. But once again, I'm getting out of my comfort zone for today because it's a very important day and I want to share my story. Do bear with me though if I stutter a bit because I am pretty nervous. And also my story is a little complex, so I'm going to try to get through it as quickly as I can. But if I have to backtrack for detail, bear with me. So my benzodiazepine story starts in 1994. I was 30. I was working for a chain called Rose Records here in Chicago, which I loved. It was a great chain, met some wonderful people. Unfortunately, they were going out of business, so I moved over to another chain that had come to town called Tower Records, an equally great company where I met a lot of wonderful people. And I saw my doctor in between the change. Now, I was having anxiety like anybody would with a new job, but what happened with me with anxiety, or always happened with me during my life, I suffer from hyperhidrosis. And if you're not familiar with that word, what hyperhidrosis is excessive sweating. A lot of people will get it on their palms, they'll get it on their armpits. For me, for some reason, it was always cranial. I could be in an air-conditioned office and really not a lot of anxiety, and I would still sweat. It would be, sweat on my forehead and my chin and my head. It was pretty bad. So I went to my doctor about the hyperhidrosis. And he's like, well, you obviously have anxiety, so, I'm going to give you some Xanax. And not knowing what I know now, I took that Xanax. I wasn't given what we call informed consent. What informed consent is being told everything about a drug before you're put on it. Now, I know everything is a lot of stuff, but with benzos, you really need to be told the dangers of these drugs before you're put on them. So it's 1994. I'm put on Xanax. I'm taking 0.25 milligrams twice a day as prescribed. And over probably about 6 months, I noticed that my anxiety had actually increased. Okay, so I mentioned this to my doctor, and my doctor's answer was to increase the Xanax, increased anxiety, increased Xanax. So he took me up to 0.50 every, twice a day, and that was like 6 months later. So that's 1994. We get to 1999. At that point, I'm probably up to about 2 milligrams of Xanax a day at that point. This is 1999. And taking it once again as prescribed. And this is treating what is my hyperhidrosis. And it's not helping. It's actually making things worse. I'm having more anxiety, so obviously I'm sweating more. My doctor has suggested a procedure called an endoscopic thoracic symphotomy. That's a lot to say. Endoscopic thoracic symphotomy. It's called ETS. And what happens is they go in, they cut your sympathetic nervous system at the T2 level, and that stops the sweating from up here, which it did, okay? But unfortunately, I got something called compensatory sweating. And what compensatory sweating is I sweat now all over my stomach, my back, my legs. My cranial sweating has come back, but for many years it was dry. But the complications were worse, much worse than the actual condition. So that happened in 1999. I was on 2 milligrams of Xanax. The operation failed. It has a very high failure rate. Once again, informed consent. I wasn't told about a lot of the dangers, how this compensatory sweating could happen, and my doctor raised me again. So here I am at like 2.5 milligrams, come 2002. By 2013, I was taking 4 milligrams of Xanax. 4 milligrams of Xanax as prescribed. I'm sorry, 2013. It was May of 2013. I was taking 4 milligrams of that. My doctor also had me on Ambien, 10 milligrams of that. He had me on Paxil, 60 milligrams of that. And he had me on Trazodone, which is 50 milligrams. Now remember, I'm on a lot of Xanax. And I'm going to my doctor saying, I can't sleep, so he puts me on Ambien, he puts me on Trazodone. We call this being polydrugged, and unfortunately it happens to a lot of people where a general doctor will just start throwing this stuff at you. So anyway, it is May of 2013. My father, who I was very close to, unfortunately passed away. It hit me pretty hard. Hit me really hard. I got very depressed. We didn't have a wake. I think that's something you need for closure. It was something my dad didn't want to have. So for me, I went back to my doctor and said, hey, I'm really depressed, thinking he was going to up my Cymbalta that I was on, which he did. I was on 40 milligrams of Cymbalta. He upped it to 60. But at the same time, what he did was he doubled my Xanax. He took me from 4 milligrams of Xanax to 8 milligrams of Xanax. Something no doctor should do to somebody. They really shouldn't do. 4 is insane. 8's just unheard of. And once again, I took this as prescribed. I have my bottles still. I was prescribed 8 pills a day. Actually, it got to the point where when it got increased, this was one of those signs. I often think back to, Starbucks, by the way. I wanted to give a shout out to my friends at the Hanover Park, Illinois Starbucks for always hooking me up with tea and not only being my baristas, but being my little therapist. I love you guys. So anyway, it's 2013, my Xanax was doubled from 4 to 8. And I call that period from 2013 to 14, like when the shit hit the fan. And it really hit the fan. I was getting really depressed. I was feeling suicidal. I was having arguments with my partner. I was having arguments at work. I was having arguments with friends. I wasn't interested in my hobbies. Just really bad shape. Really bad shape. And I didn't know what was going on. I really, at that time, didn't relate it to the huge amount of Xanax that I was taking. And September of 2014 came along, and in August of that year of 2014, we lost Robin Williams, and I was a fan, like a lot of people, and there was something about his suicide that triggered me, to be honest with you. It really triggered me. It threw me into a depression. I think my own depression at the time was, my own issues obviously were coming out, but that definitely triggered something in me. He had passed away in August. September 9th of 2014, I did my suicide attempt. I tried to hang myself. I took a belt and put it around my neck, got onto a chair, took that belt, lodged it into a chair, or to a door, and tightened the belt around my neck and pushed the chair away. And it was weird, actually, to go back. I found myself on the chair. I don't really remember getting up there. I'm not trying to deny what I did, but I was in a stupor. And it wasn't from, drinking or anything like that. It was from taking these drugs. And that's what I mean about informed consent. They don't tell you. They don't tell you that this is going to cause this kind of situation, that your anxiety is going to flip, that you're going to start feeling suicidal, that your tolerance is going to get sky high, that you're going to become aggressive, that your personality is going to change. They don't tell you this stuff. They don't. And they need to. They need to, because people need to be informed about anything they're taking. So anyways, to go back to my story, I remember being up on the chair, leaning into the belt, and not really knowing what I was doing, and leaning in and thinking this is it, and then falling to the ground. and waking up. I basically woke up and said, holy fucking shit, what did I just do? You know, what the hell? And very, very grateful that I was alive at that point. Very grateful. And then I blacked out again. I blacked out. During this time, I found out later, I had gone online. I am pretty much an internet junkie, Facebook junkie. And I had gone on and posted an encrypted goodbye to people. I wrote something like, I'm so sorry, everyone. And I'm grateful I did that because one of my friends who was out of town saw it and had called the paramedics. So once again, to go back, I was on this chair, fell off this chair, or belt broke, and I'm on the ground, and I'm really grateful that I'm alive, and I black out again. Next thing I know, it's the next morning, and I'm waking up, and I'm in a behavior hospital. And shit gets kind of weird here, so bear with me. So I'm in this behavior hospital, and they tell me that I'm going to have to be under observation for 72 hours for my suicide attempt. And I'm like, okay. So during this time, they make you go into these like little meetings and stuff like that. And so I'm doing that, and I saw my psychiatrist, my new psychiatrist, that night. And this is before they give you your medicine. He had come in around like 7 and talked to him. He was pretty bad, to be honest with you. Really scary person. And had that session, went to get my medicine, and they did not give me my Xanax. And I was like, why? You know, why are you not giving it to me? And they're like, well, you tried to commit suicide by taking a Xanax overdose. And I'm like, no, I didn't. I took what was prescribed. And they're like, well, until this gets out of your system, you know, we have to keep you off of it. So I'm like, okay. I had no idea. So this is on Wednesday. This is a Wednesday morning. Okay, this is Wednesday night. It goes into Thursday. I am up all night. I start walking the hallways. I am sweating. It's just really bad. Thursday night comes along. Once again, I don't get my medicine. I'm starting to lose it, to be honest with you. I'm shivering. I'm shaking. Thursday night is just, it's one of the most hideous nights of my life. I'm, trying to fall asleep, but there's no way I can fall asleep. Friday comes along. Okay, so once again, I've been up at that point, over 48 hours. I'm in what they call post or acute withdrawal, being, forcefully taken off of this high amount of Xanax. Friday comes along. I'm in one of our little hour meetings, and I'm feeling very manic, and my mouth is just like that. And I went and got some water, and I came into the next meeting, and bam, that's it. I had my first grand mal seizure. I'm on the ground, I'm looking up, everything looks like a fishbowl. I remember that happening, and them putting me on a stretcher, taking me across the parking lot to the emergency room of the hospital, because I was in a behavior hospital. And I'm in the emergency room, and bam, I have a second grand mal seizure. At that point, I'm trying to talk to people. Like, it was horrible. I can't even describe what it felt like to you. It felt like my brain had just snapped. Things weren't making sense. My breathing wasn't good. I was in really bad shape. So they admitted me to the hospital. They actually said that they needed to run tests on me for epilepsy. They had just taken me off of a shitload of Xanax, and they think I have epilepsy. So they scheduled an MRI and then also another procedure for that same day. So it is Saturday morning. Once again, no sleep. I've had 2 grand mal seizures, no sleep. They take me downstairs to put me in an MRI tube. I'm in the MRI tube, and bam, I had my third grand mal seizure, all within 24 hours. It's hard to talk about this. This is probably why I don't do videos, because that part of my story is so hard for me to talk about, because you're supposed to be in a place where people are taking care of you and people have your best interest at heart. And they don't. They don't. And like I said, I didn't know then what I know now. Nobody should be taken off these drugs cold turkey. Not in the way I was. I have a lot of medical trauma from that whole incident that, still need to deal with. Still need to deal with that. So, 3 grand mal seizures. 3 grand mal seizures. I'm in the hospital. The MRI comes back negative for epilepsy. Yeah, don't have epilepsy. No. So they took me back to the behavior hospital for a few days and then released me. They released me with no follow-up care whatsoever. Oh, and I should mention the hospital. It's Lexus Brothers, which is in Hoffman Estates Behavior Hospital. Really bad place. They have a really bad reputation. Definitely want to stay out of there. So anyway, to show you how bad they were, they released me with no follow-up care whatsoever. So here I am. I've had 3 grand mal seizures. I've been cold turkeyed off of 8 milligrams of Xanax. I'm in acute withdrawal. I can't drive. I can hardly walk. And they're like, oh, go home. So I reached out to a friend of mine who used to be in the music industry, who is in the recovery profession now. He's a therapist, and he recommended that I go to another place in the city. It is called Harborview Recovery Center, which is at St. Joseph Hospital. It's on Inner Lakeshore Drive. Not a bad place, but I was the only benzo person. And to backtrack a bit, when I was at the behavior hospital at St. Alexis, I was also the only benzo person being treated. The reason I bring this up is that people going through anything benzo related, I really don't think a detox or a behavior hospital is a safe place for you. I say this from firsthand experience. I say this because I see that they have no idea what to do with us. What they try to do is throw things like gabapentin at us, which is also a drug that can affect your central nervous system. So anyway, so I'm at this hospital, St. Joseph Hospital. They have 12-step groups. I'm going into the 12-step groups. They have AA, NA, CNA, which is crystal meth. I didn't feel like I belonged. I did not feel like I belonged because I didn't feel I was addicted to Xanax, because I was taking it as prescribed. I was taking it as my doctor prescribed it. I see the benefits of 12-step groups. I definitely see that. My dad was in AA. It definitely helped him turn around his life. But I saw a lot of stigmatizing in these groups that just didn't really gel with me. And once again, like I said, I was the only person. So I got out of Harborview, and they luckily said, look, you need some follow-up care. So I did an IOP, which stands for Intensive Outcare Patient. I did that at Central DuPage Hospital in Winfield as an outpatient there. And once again, I'm the only benzo person. And this is where it really kind of hit home that, I was on my own. Because it was a pretty big amount of us in there. Lots of people on opiates and stuff, but and once again, they had no idea what to do with me. The psychiatrist was trying to put me on gabapentin, and I'm like, no, I don't want to be on other drugs. And it's like, I want to feel normal again. And what happened was that I got out of that, and I did find a psychiatrist that did what they called reinstating. And I was reinstated on a benzo. I was put on Valium. And the reason that Valium, a lot of us are moved over from Xanax, Ativan, and Klonopin, which are all benzos, over to Valium. It's called a crossover. It's because Valium stays in your blood system longer. So as you're tapering, it's supposed to be easier on you than Xanax and Ativan and Klonopin, which it is, but it comes with its own drawbacks. So anyway, so I found a doctor that reinstated me onto a benzo, and I was put on, at that time, 60 milligrams. This is in 60 milligrams of Valium, which sounds like a shitload of Valium, but if you compare it to Xanax, it's something like, I believe it's like 10 milligrams, 5 to 10 milligrams of Valium will equal like a half milligram of Xanax. I may be wrong there. I'm kind of rambling here, but anyway, it's where we get moved over to taper, and I was put on 60 milligrams. So that is in early 2015. So today it's 2019. I'm down to 6 milligrams. Actually, in the past 2 months, I've cut my Valium from 8 milligrams to 6 milligrams. And I wish I could say it was easy, but it's come at a price. I'm dealing with a lot of depression. I'm dealing with a lot of anxiety. Dealing with suicidal thoughts. Be transparent with you, there's really not a day that goes by that I don't think about wanting to kill myself. And that's shocking to say and hear from people, but I hear that a lot from other people who are on benzodiazepines, or trying to taper from benzodiazepines. It's a very, very common, unfortunately, symptom that we all deal with. So that's where I am at today. I'm on 6 milligrams. I'm very proud of myself for being able to, have so much movement in the past 2 months. My taper is not at all like a lot of people's taper. I've been going really, really slow, and I've been going slow because I have to. I have to support myself. Unfortunately, when I was in the hospital, for those couple months when I was in the hospital with the seizures, I was off work for a couple months afterwards. Unfortunately, had to file bankruptcy, so I have some financial stuff hanging over me. So I have to work. I just have to work. I need my insurance. So I've been going really slow, a lot slower than most people. But everybody is different, and everybody has their own way of, trying to get off of these drugs. Positive things that I've done since this has happened is I formed a support group to get back to my issues with the 12-step groups. I found that there was a lot of shaming, a lot of stigma. I was being made to feel like I was a drug addict when I was taking a drug as prescribed. I battled alcohol. I understand alcohol addiction. That runs my family, so I know addiction. And what I'm dealing with right now with the benzos is not addiction. It's dependency. It's a physical dependency. I don't crave a Xanax or a Valium. What I crave is some peace. But unfortunately, if I go a day or so without a Valium, I feel it physically. And I'm not getting peace from the Valium. When I was talking earlier about the dangers, one of the dangers of Valium is that it can be very depressing on you, and fatigue sets in. So I constantly have fatigue. Some of the other symptoms I have is a racing heart. I have excessive sweating, of course, from my surgery I had, but also from the withdrawal. But anyway, so to go back, I started the support group in 2017. It grew out of me being frustrated by 12-step groups and the stigma that came with it. I wanted something that would address the benzos and also antidepressants, which a lot of us, unfortunately, on benzos were also prescribed antidepressants. So I started the support group. We meet once or twice a month at the Schaumburg Library here in Schaumburg, Illinois. We usually get about 5 or 7 people per meeting. The hardest thing about a meeting is just getting people out. When you're dealing with this, you're dealing with agoraphobia. You're dealing with a lot of symptoms, so it is hard to get people out. And I just have to turn the camera right now because we have a special guest right there. That's my cat, our cat, David Bowie. So I'm really glad. Hi, David. David wanted to let me know that I'm probably rambling here, so I should probably wrap this up. We're going to turn it here or there, so we can see them again. Yeah. So anyway, that's my story. That's not my whole story. There's a lot more to it, but I'm going to upload this now and get this video out of the way. Thank you for listening. I hope I didn't ramble too much. I had some notes. I left those notes at work. Like I said, I just wanted to do something out of my bubble and put it up there. So here it is. Hopefully I'll do more videos in the future. The main thing that I want to express to people and get across is awareness. Awareness about what these drugs do to you. And informed consent. How important informed consent is to a patient. If you're going to put somebody on something, you need to let them know the, what's going to happen. I wasn't a drug user. I never got into opiates. I never got into coke. I worked in the music industry in the 80s, never did coke. I never did ecstasy because I knew ecstasy would make you depressed. I stayed away from those drugs. I was wise enough to know that. What I didn't know, and I'm going to stop blaming myself for that, was that there are doctors out there who don't have your best interest at heart. They don't. You may think they will because they'll get you in for appointments and they'll be your bro, and if you need that refill called in, they'll call it in, but they do not have your best interests at all. They don't. So that's my story right now. Like I said, down to 6 milligrams, dealing with symptoms, but I'm working a full-time job. My job is really interesting. I have a really cool job that I just kind of stumbled into. I work in a call center for a medical cannabis company. And what my job is talking about listening to other patients, and how, they got dependent on these drugs, not just opiates, but also, benzodiazepines. And I think when it comes to cannabis, I think that it is definitely an exit drug. It's not a miracle drug. If it was a miracle drug, I would be off the Valium right now. But it has definitely improved the quality of my life. I would not be working full time. I probably wouldn't be making this video right now if it wasn't for the impact that cannabis has helped, and it calms me down, lets me enjoy a better quality of life. So that's it for now. We'll talk more later, but thanks for listening, and I appreciate it. Love you guys. Bye.